Did you remember when the world was totally shut down and our daily life was totally paralyzed because of COVID pandemic? For sure you will all say big yes. And who are in front of these battles against the COVID-19? The healthcare workers, the frontline workers. My colleague, the nurses in general. The nurses from Ireland, from Philippines, from India, from Australia, from United States of America. They are the modern hero. They are the modern saints. Without their significant role to fight against this COVID-19 virus, we are not what we are today. Back to normal. Back to normal and enjoy life to the fullest again. To all the nurses around the globe, thank you so much for what you've done during the P.E.P pandemic. Words is not enough to say thank you. Sincerely, thank you so much to all of you. To my colleague, Anda, Molly, Isabel, Rico, and Fran, thank you so much for sharing your experience during the P.E.P pandemic. Thank you so much for sharing in your YouTube channel journey with me, etc., etc., etc. by Juliana. Let us all watch their video. Thank you.
I currently work as a nurse with Juliana in Dublin, and I've been working there since July of this year. For the first year and a half of the pandemic, I was living and working in Australia, and there were some days where there were 0 cases in the whole country, and I didn't really come across any patients who had had COVID, or I didn't know anyone living in Australia who had had COVID. So when I came home to Ireland in June 2021, I had a much different experience because I met a lot of people who had had COVID and who had been really affected with COVID. And I also heard stories from a lot of my friends and colleagues about what it was like working as a frontline healthcare worker during that time. And it just sounded very, very difficult and challenging. And I think it would have been very hard to work in an acute setting during that time.
My experience with COVID is really full of anxiety and worry because I work in the emergency department. Even we have all the gear to protect ourselves, and even me personally building up my own resistance by taking vitamins, staying fit, doing exercises. Still, I couldn't take away the fact that we don't know how the COVID affects every individual, and especially when you hear young people that have contracted the COVID and suddenly they die, even they don't have comorbidities, and no matter how well they are before they get the COVID. And secondly, and when my sister contracted the COVID, and I know she's on dialysis, but that's one of our worry, that once she get the COVID, I don't think that I should be able to stand it because her immunity is quite low, and she's very vulnerable. And the worst part of that is I wasn't able to go home and able to see her, and even my family back home that who's with her wasn't able to see her even at the time of her death. So those are the two things that actually so far is the worst experience of my life.
Hi, my name is Belle, and I had a COVID experience in March 2020, which is quite different from what my experience in COVID times today. My initial symptoms was a purulent cough. I didn't have fever nor shortness of breath. So initially, the symptoms of COVID was not, framed properly. So we still don't know what the initial symptoms were. And I've known my body, so I insisted to have a PRC test. When I got my PRC test, it was positive. I was really sick for 14 days. And on those days, I developed some symptoms such as difficulty of breathing. When you breathe in or you breathe out, there's a certain like pain in the sternum area as if somebody was stepping on it. And then I have rashes. I also developed diarrhea and my altered sense of taste and sense of smell. And other than that, it was getting hard to breathe, usually during the evening time. So I remember that I mostly slept in a like 90 degrees angle. Basically what I did is I just took some paracetamol to keep myself hydrated, did pulmonary exercises, and it was scary because you never know during the time if you'll survive or not, and there wasn't a clear sign of any drugs or whatsoever that could help it. So it's quite unnerving, and yeah, it got me really scared to the point that I did my last will and testament. There you go. But I would have to say the plus side of it, it got me perspective of what I want in my life, and you know, it got you to perspective of, okay, this is people who I need in my life or who are quite important to me as well, and these are the priorities I need to do. And you know, it gives you that, but at the same time, you know, it gives you the fighting spirit. If you have survived this, you would survive anything. The worst case scenario for me was I was alone during those time, and I'm so glad I have wonderful people around me who check up on me every day. And yeah, so there you go.
My experience with nursing during COVID is initially it was hard and very traumatic. I was working in an acute unit, in a psychiatric unit, so there was a lot of unpredictability. People were being admitted to the ward who weren't sure if they had COVID. We had to learn how to test them, putting on PPE gear. It was just very unpredictable. Coming home at night time, stripping outside your door because you didn't want to be carrying stuff in, and the clothes you're wearing in and out of the hospital. Then having to wash your clothes at home with 65 degrees, and there was just so much unpredictability. Then I was working in children's hospital like that too, more unpredictability, not knowing what people had, just not knowing what was going on. So from that experience, you know, working long hours and being understaffed because so many staff members were getting COVID too, it just caused a lot of trauma, and it put me off working in the hospital. So I work in a clinic now, and I don't ever intend to go back and work in a hospital again.
Hello guys! So yung friend ko, my good friend Juliana, asked me to share to you my COVID experience. So yes, November 2021, myself and my partner tested positive from COVID. Yes, that's true. Unfortunately, after 19 months ng pag-iingat, ng pagpapa-follow ng mga government protocols, nag-enter galore na rin si COVID sa aming balur. So, hindi rin kami nakatakas sa dalawa in spite of pagta-travel namin nakapag-Greece pa kami yan, nakapag-Italy pa kami yan, pero never kami nagka-COVID. Dito mismo sa aming komunidad or community na acquire ang COVID. So, ano ba ang naging paghahanda namin nung nagka-COVID kami? Actually, ever since naman handa naman na kami nung partner ko. Kasi I remember nung February 2020, the first time COVID reached Europe, I remember we were in Italy. And yun ang epicenter ng COVID. At just, oh my God, ang panicking ng buong mundo, ng buong Europa. So, moving forward to 2021 nung November, meron na kami mga gamot just in case may plan na kami ng partner ko. Ang lagi namin pag-uusap is kung sino yung unang magka-COVID, magsa-self-isolate doon sa room na may banyo. Yun. So we stick to those plan. Siya yung nauna, siya nag-self-isolate. So doon siya nag-self-isolate for 5 days until I got my PCR result na, which is positive then. So yun yung maganda kasi we have a plan. And also, medyo nalas yung panic namin dalawa kasi we got the mild symptoms. And the good thing was the two of us able to spend time together during the self-isolation, yung ganon. One thing that I would advise those people na fully vaccinated naman is don't panic, because we know that vaccine works. Just to make sure lang, meron kayong mga tamang gamot na for 10 days na paracetamol, ibuprofen, oximeter to check your oxygen levels, and then yung suob. For some reason talaga nakatulong sa amin ni Joe, ng partner ko. I was saying about the steam inhalation. We use Vicks. I remember 3 times a day ang pag-take namin ng Lemsip. Even though with no fever, thank God. Ang nawala lang sa amin ng partner ko is yung sense of smell and taste. Yun lang. So we're very lucky to have that. Pero we followed kasi sabi ng mother ko, magsuob ka, mag-steam ka. So ginawa namin yon. Nag-Vicks steam inhalation kami, which is really, really good. Talaga nakatulong siya. Ano pa ba? Yung runny nose. Nagkaroon ako ng runny nose and allergy kind of form na symptoms na hatching ako ng hatching. Yun ang symptoms ko. I don't know if I got the Delta or Omicron. I think Omicron. And then, Netflix. Nanood kami ng Netflix nung COVID. Tapos, nanood kami ng mga documentaries. YouTube helps. I speak to my family back home. I speak to my friends. Some of my friends that I constantly speaking with. Sila nakakaalam na COVID kami noon. And then, we try to relax. Pero to be honest, nung first time na nag-positive yung partner ko, medyo nag-panic talaga ako kasi I'm always been a warrior. Lagi ako nagpa-panic in a way. Pero, na-reassure ko yung sarili ko the next time na bakit ako nagpa-panic? Fully vaccinated naman kami. So, yun na nga. So, medyo nag-lessen yung aking pagpapanik nun. So, in-enjoy namin yung moment na yon na we were together, me and my partner together. So, kasi nga, for the two of us, between the two of us, yung partner ko, he always reassure me that everything will be fine. Ako kasi yung warrior Yun. So, yun nga. So, 10 days kami nag-self-isolate. We eat healthy as much as possible. Thank God, yung sense of taste namin and smell, bumalik din siya. After a couple of days, hindi kami nahirapan. We were able to enjoy the Christmas season, as we say. So, ano pa ba ma-advise ko? I think hindi ko naman mapipilit yung vaccine, each to their own. Pero one thing I can assure you that vaccine works for me at least and my partner. Vaccine really, really works. Kasi kung wala yun, we don't know kung we will survive COVID or not. Yes.
Hello everyone. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Ako po ay nahilingan ng isang aking kaibigan na magbigay ng kaunting salaysay tungkol po sa karanasan sa COVID. Sa totoo lang, sa sarili ko po hindi ko po naranasan ng maghirap, pero marami po akong kakilala na totoo pong nahirapan sa COVID na ito. Meron pong isang pamilya na halos silang lahat ay nagkaroon ng COVID. Hindi sila makalabas, hindi sila makabili ng pagkain. Merong isang pamilya sila na hindi affected, na hindi nakatira sa parehong tahanan. Nakakalungkot po na nagdala po siya ng pagkain na nilagay lang sa pintuan. At ang isa pang nakakalungkot ay dahil natakot ang kanilang mga magulang sa bakuna, hindi po nagpabakuna, naniwala po na hindi po totoo ang COVID, hanggang sa nalaman nila na totoo ang COVID nang napunta na po sa ospital ang kanilang magulang. Sa kasawiang palad po, pumanaw po ang isang membro ng pamilya. Meron po rin isa pang istorya na natakot din po sa bakuna. Akala kung malakas ang katawan, hindi siya tatamaan. Pero ito pong taong to ay malusog, malakas, bata pa. Pero po sobra pong namayat at ang problema, takot siyempre pumunta ng ospital dahil lahat ay may COVID at hindi pwedeng dalawin. So yun po ang nakakalungkot. Kapag ka po tinamaan ng COVID, solo ka na sa loob ng kwarto, nurse lang ang pupunta sa'yo, bawal kang dalawin, kung meron kang kailangan, sa nurse ka lang magsasabi, at natural ang ospital ay sobrang busy, hindi ka kaagad mapupuntahan ng nurse. At syempre, tao rin po ang mga nurse, sila rin po ay nagkakasakit, kaya karamihan po sa ospital ay kulang ang nurse, kaya maunawaan po natin na sobra pong nahihirapan din po ang mga nurse. Tunay po na nakakaiyak, dahil po ang mga nurse ay kailangan po ng pansanggalang, kung tawagin sa English ay PPE. Ito po ay hindi mura at nung kasalukuyang mataas ang numero ng mga kaso ng pandemya ng COVID, kulang po ang PPE. Kaya ang nangyayari po, titiisin mo kahit na ikaw ay kailangan na mag-toilet para lang po ma-save ang PPE na gagamitin mo. So tiis ang pagpunta ng banyo, tiis ang gutom, tiis ang pagod, at sa tagal na nakasuot ang PPE, nagmamarka po, nagsusugat po ang mga mukha dahil po sa mga mask. Marami po mga nakakalungkot na istorya, marami po ang pumanaw. Yun po, kung tayo po ay malakas sa panahon ngayon, tayo po ay kailangang magpasalamat sa Panginoon. Kung tayo po ay pinagaling sa COVID, salamat sa Panginoon. At nawa, kung meron tayong maitutulong sa ating gobyerno, sa ating mga komunidad, sa ating mga kaibigan, ay gawin natin sa kaya nating paraan. Nawa, ito po ay makadulot ng aral o makatulong sa sino man pong nalulungkot at nag-aalala tungkol sa COVID. Hindi pa po tapos ang pandemic at nawa last na po si Omicron. Tayo po ay patuloy na manalangin. Marami pong salamat sa panonood ninyo at nawa suportahan natin si etc. sa kanyang advokasya na makatulong po sa mga nangangailangan sa Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po. Bye!